Welcome back, friends. I'm Yvonne Davis, author, astrologer, and life transformation coach. And today I have a video for you titled Trump Misses the Boat. So I'm going to bring up some charts. I've been doing some research lately, and I think this will be very interesting to you. And by the way, if you've ordered a reading and have not set your appointment, please contact me at admin@yvonnedavis.com, or if you have questions regarding readings. Okay, so I want to talk about an event that occurred in 1918, and I'll just let you know I have to be careful about any words that I use because YouTube will demonetize certain videos. So just have a look up here and you can see the name of this chart and the 1918 event that I am referring to. So this is the nation's chart on the inside. I'm using the July 4th, 1776 chart. That's on the inside. And this event, I chose September 11th because there actually was an event that occurred on that day specifically that I thought was interesting. And it sort of encapsulates the year. It will show us where the long-term transits were. And also, I've often believed that when I'm doing charts, a lot of times I am relying heavily on my intuition. And there's something about divination, which is that there are no coincidences. So if I choose a specific date for a chart, there's often a reason for that that is not a coincidence. It has something to do with using the astrological chart as a divination tool. So anyway, that just helps you to understand why I chose this date specifically, okay? So the first thing I want you to see is that the nodes at this time were in Sagittarius and Gemini. And that's important because this is going to happen again this year, 2020. Now, the nodes signify karma, and that is where the eclipses will take place. So that's where they were taking place in the year 1918. And as you can see, the North Node is moving into conjunction with the nation's ascendant. So this is very important to keep in mind as we move forward and look at more charts. All right, so the next thing I want you to notice in this chart at this time in 1918, Jupiter and Pluto were conjunct in the 8th house, which is ruled by Pluto. One of the things it rules is death. These are also the money houses, okay? Pluto rules birth, death, and joint resources. So these are money houses, but it's important to understand also that Pluto rules death and transformation and legacies, inheritance, joint finances. So that would include the nation's economy and stock market as well, okay? But again, just notice that Jupiter and Pluto are conjunct. Jupiter expands whatever it touches. So in a favorable way, it can expand wealth and power because Pluto also represents wealth and power. But in an afflicted chart, it can represent death, of course, and then Jupiter would expand that. So I want you to understand that a reading for a nation is not the same as a reading for an individual. So please do not take this as an interpretation of your own personal chart and what's going to be happening to you. There's no way to know that without looking at your personal chart. So I would always assume that it's going to manifest in the best way possible for you. For the nation, it depends on whether or not the chart is afflicted, okay? So the other thing I want you to look at is the fact that Mars in this chart is in the 12th house, which is ruled by Neptune, and it's squaring both Neptune and Saturn. So it's important to understand Neptune because Neptune, being the ruler of the 12th house, is also the ruler of hospitals. And it rules containment. It rules incarceration, institutionalization, being hospitalized, being quarantined, anything where you are shut up, you're shut in. And that generally has to do with the necessity for maintaining the health of the individual, whether the mental health, the physical health, or if they're criminal, incarcerating them. So again, this is related to hospitals, asylums, being institutionalized, being incarcerated, being shut up, being quarantined, anything like that is ruled by the 12th house and by Neptune. So Mars is the ruler of inflammation and therefore also the ruler of infections. And it is squaring Neptune in this chart while it's in the 12th house. It's also squaring Saturn, which represents the structures, authority, institutions. So the fact that it's squaring both Neptune and Saturn indicates that it was having a deleterious effect, both in terms of the health of the people of the nation, the health of the nation itself, and also the structures of the nation, which we know because they did not, the infrastructure did not have the capacity to deal with what was happening at that time in 1918. So those are the three most important things to keep in mind as we move forward. The fact that the nodes were here in the 1st and 7th house, moving into conjunction with the ascendant and with Mars, and later with Uranus, and that the eclipses were taking place in these houses, okay, because that's going to happen in 2020 as well. And then secondly, Jupiter-Pluto conjunction in the 8th house, which is ruled by Pluto. These are the houses of money, but Pluto also rules death. And then thirdly, the Mars in 12th house square to Neptune and Saturn. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the next chart that will give us some clues. Now, I do want to say that this is not, I'm not making a prediction in this reading. I am simply showing you the correspondences because there were obvious similarities to 1918 that we see playing out again in 2020. So I'm not predicting what will manifest. I'm just saying that there are similarities. Okay, so here you see on June 5th, we have a square of Mars conjunct Neptune in Pisces in the 4th house of home. So this is our home, this is our land, the nation. And it's making a square to the nodes with Venus retrograde. So, so again, the nodes are in the 1st and 7th house, and the eclipse is activating both the ascendant and the Mars of the nation, and probably even Uranus, because of the fact that it's right there in the middle. So everything's getting activated in the 1st and 7th house of the nation at the time of this eclipse, when Mars in Pisces conjunct Neptune is squaring this eclipse exactly at 15 degrees with Venus retrograde. So what that tells us is, one, it's reflecting back to the Mars-Neptune connection, and also the fact that the nodes are here and there's an eclipse here. But the fact that Venus is retrograde and Mars is here in Pisces conjunct Neptune squaring this eclipse tells me that there's missing information. And that's the biggest problem. That's why I'm calling this this reading Trump Misses the Boat, is because one of the biggest problems that we're having this year is missing information and disinformation, false information, intentional deception, and fake news, and all those kinds of things. That's the first time I started talking about this. That's what I was talking about, and I hadn't done enough research yet to be able to come out with a more well thought out discussion of what was happening astrologically related to what we see happening in our nation right now, And I just, you know, the way I presented it, it was very, very triggering for a lot of people. So anyway, and that is the problem though. It's a fundamental problem, is that there is missing information. And if, you know, I would say it's even more important than what we actually see here happening astrologically. The fact that the information is missing, and that there's misinformation and deception and hiding information and false information and fake news and all of that, that is the fundamental problem more than anything else. All right, so the next chart I want to take you to shows you again how Mars is squaring in a very important way. And remember what I said about Mars, which is that Mars is the planet of inflammation and infection. It's the planet, and fevers. It's the planet that rules violence, and it strikes in a very fiery way. So that's why it rules inflammation, infection, and fevers. So you can see here that it goes retrograde at 28 degrees of Aries, which is its natal, you know, it's like its resident sign. That's Aries. So Mars is always more intense when it's in Aries, and it goes retrograde here at 28 degrees, and it is squaring the natal Pluto of our nation and Mercury. So there you go with the information. Pluto rules wealth, and these are in the money houses, but it also rules death. And Mercury is in the 8th house, which is ruled by Pluto. So again, these are money houses, but we've also got the aspect of death, which is Pluto and the 8th house. And Mars here in Aries goes retrograde right in a T-square with Pluto in the 2nd house, that's money, and in the 8th house, that's money, and Mercury is information. Pluto can rule wealth, power, and death, and the 8th house is also Pluto's home. So I'm hoping you're kind of making the connection here. The meaning of Mars and then the square here, which puts pressure on the information, Mercury's information about what's going on here in the houses of finance and what's happening. Are people, you know, is there an outbreak? That would be a question that we may not have true information to answer that question. And that's what the square is about, in my opinion. And also that it will impact the economy and the stock market. So the other thing you want to look out down here is the Jupiter-Pluto-Saturn conjunction, because they will play a role too. And again, don't assume that because it's happening in the nation that means it's going to happen to you personally. Personal charts can be 100% different than what's happening in a nation. So please do not make those assumptions. Although, of course, take precautions. Okay, so here you see the nodes are still in the houses, the 1st and 7th houses. So again, that's similar to 1918. And then the square. So I think the one other thing maybe I ought to bring to your attention is the fact that in this particular chart, the sun is opposite Neptune. So again, that's another example of how information is being hidden. I think to some degree there is intentional deception going on here. And that, yeah, these are pretty much in a square to the nodes as well. So, and it's also squaring the ascendant and Mars. So that's the biggest problem, in my opinion, is the misinformation and the disinformation and the deception around all of this. Okay, so then the next chart that I want to show you will take us to the end of 2020. And so we can see how all of this is developing over time with the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction at the North Node. So we've got Pluto moving into conjunction with Pluto. It's not fully in a conjunction, but it is starting to have an effect. And this will create a transformation of our nation. So many things that, wherever there's a weakness, Pluto will bring that to light over time. The closer and closer it gets to its conjunction with its natal Pluto, until finally all the weaknesses have been revealed and the transformation has occurred. Okay, so one of them obviously is our health infrastructure, and the weaknesses in our health infrastructure will be revealed. So again, notice the nodes here. The North Node is already pretty much into conjunction with Mars in the 7th house. And so, but that's the most important thing to keep in mind, is the nodes are in the 1st and 7th house, just like they were in 1918. So all the eclipses are happening in these houses. And then again, Pluto moving into conjunction with the natal Pluto. Pluto rules death and also wealth and money and power. And these are the money houses. So the money of the nation, the economy, the stock market will be impacted by all of this. And then the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction is also very important, and it's in conjunction with the South Node. The South Node is something that needs to be completed, and it's a karma that needs to be completed and released, and it's in the 3rd house of information. So we're getting closer and closer and closer to learning the truth. And also at the time of the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, Mars is moving into conjunction with the natal Chiron of the nation, and this is a point of wounding for the nation. So it will cross this 3 times. So there's something very important about this Mars. Again, Mars can rule inflammation, infection, fever. It's a violent sign. It strikes and it can kill. Especially when it's in a square to Pluto, okay, which it is right over the Chiron. So these are important things to keep in mind, that I think that our nation may experience some challenging situations this year. Well, actually, I know our nation will. I just want to be very careful about my interpretations, because if people take things too literally, then sometimes they'll actually miss the truth. You always have to keep your mind open to different ways that these things can manifest. So I'm giving you some clues, okay? And then the final chart I want to show you is Inauguration Day, because I've been talking a lot about the Inauguration Day chart, and I've said that it's going to bring a revolution. And I've also said it's not going to be a violent revolution, at least not wide violence. There will be pockets of violence, but not wide violence. So here's another square with Mars. So Mars here is conjunct Uranus, which is things that are shocking. Mars is violence, Uranus is things that are shocking, and the moon is emotions, subconscious, the people. But the moon, being a water sign, can also indicate anything to do with water, and their bodily fluids are related to water. So again, that could touch back on the issues that are happening in our country today that reflect back to what was happening in 1918. And it's squaring Saturn and Jupiter in Aquarius, which are right over the South Node now. So there's something here about the information. The square is bringing a revolution, and has something to do with the information. The information may be finally being revealed about the weaknesses in our structures, particularly our health structures, meaning our infrastructure, our health care, anything to do with the health of the nation. It will bring to our awareness the weaknesses, so that we can bring about the transformation that Pluto conjunct Pluto will bring, and also information, so that information can hopefully in the future be more accurate. So that's what we need to see here. Now again, the nodes are in the 1st and 7th house as they were in 1918. The North Node is hovering over the natal Mars. So so we're going to see something that's going to take place over the course of the year that will bring about this revolution, okay, and the transformation and the restructuring that is absolutely essential. Again, I think it will bring up the weaknesses in our system, both in terms of information communication, and also in terms of our economy and the stock market, and also in terms of our health infrastructure. Okay. All right. So again, the most important thing to remember is that a reading for a nation is not a reading for an individual. But of course, I would suggest that you take precautions to protect yourself, both your health and your finances. All right, so that's it for today. And if you have not yet subscribed to my channel, please subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, click like on this video, share with friends and family on social media, and leave your comments. And if you have ordered a reading but have not yet set your appointment, please contact me at admin@yvonnedavis.com, or if you have any questions about readings, you can contact me at that address as well. Alrighty, and I will see you again next time. Bye-bye.